where did you get the original idea it came from? I mean, this is a very ambitious project.
So I've been an athlete my whole life. I played football, I boxed, I wrestled a little bit, and growing up, we were given the trainers, coaches, they all, so that you need to eat meat to be strong, to be fast, to be the best, to be the biggest. And when I got done playing football, I had numerous health issues. And when I decided that I wanted to try a vegan diet to, alleviate some of those issues, I realized there wasn't a lot of information about vegan athletes and essentially or vegetarian athletes and how they could do it and succeed. So that was kind of the impetus right there. I wanted to know, okay, are there elite competitors out there? And I wanted to know why they do it. Because for me, the amount of calories I ate and where they came from, I just couldn't believe that I was destroying my health, to achieve a goal of playing football. So essentially it came from, my initial transition and wanting to know more.
Now, how did you want to approach your own documentary here? I mean, it's been done before. In fact, Netflix had this documentary called What's the Health that was very similar. But I mean, how did you want to do this differently to catch the audience?
So from the ground up, there's a couple ways I could have gone about doing this. We could have, picked 5 or 6 athletes and followed them on their journeys and, real time what they're doing in competitive athletics. But I feel like that's been done quite a bit, kind of like with the 24/7 for boxing on HBO or the UFC primetime shows. I wanted to, this isn't a new idea, right? The vegan for health, vegan for the animals, vegan for the environment, that a lot of people have their reason for being. So I didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel. And what I wanted to do was try to engage an audience outside of the vegetarian and vegan community. People like my dad, people like my grandmother, people that, maybe it might benefit their health. Maybe, people that are environmentalists that continue to eat meat from the mechanized standard American food system. Hopefully would see this film and understand that that's not the best thing for the natural world. So I wanted to tell it in a very, I don't want to say puff piece, but I wanted to tell it in a way that, people could feel that they're not attacked. It wasn't, being shoved at them or told what to do. I wanted to ask questions and get the answers along the way and then have the athletes fill in the answers as well with the experts.
Yeah, I was very thankful that you didn't shove it down anyone's throats in this case.
Right.
So how was your transition process from going from a meat-eating athlete to something vegan? I mean, was it a slow process or just cut it off cold turkey?
So, my transition to a vegan diet, I would say, is not the best way to do it. I was so appalled by some of the information I was reading that one weekend after, reading numerous journals about the health effects of processed meat, red meat, and then the health benefits of vegetarian vegan diets. I was like, you know what? I've eaten so much food. I ate, enough meat that somebody could eat in a lifetime in 4 years. So I was so appalled by that and scared at the same time. I did a cold turkey, which was not sustainable for long-term success. I don't think anybody should do that with a diet because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. At the end of the day, I think for someone to be successful doing this, they need to take small steps. And moderation is key. I think that, so many people strive for perfection and perfection's unattainable. You cannot be perfect. So what I believe is the best way to go about doing it, maybe start with red meat, processed meat, work your way down to chicken, then fish, and then smaller products like the eggs and the dairy. I think that's the best way to do it. But for me, I didn't do it right at first, and it was challenging because I had only known meat, and I'm Italian too, so food is ingrained in our culture. Meat is a part of my culture. So it was difficult, but when you have the why, the how is no problem.
Now, growing up in an Italian household yourself, you even brought your family into the documentary. How receptive are they today with your culture change, and do you manage to convince anyone in your family to go along with you?
Well, so it's interesting. I was very fortunate, talking about that point of bringing them in. Although my family was confused about my switch to a vegan diet, they never criticized me. They didn't judge me. Sometimes there'd be little softball jokes, but at the end of the day, I think I've been very fortunate that they were tolerant of it. But to this day, I mean, my dad still, he has vegan protein shakes for breakfast. He eats less meat. He's watched his diet. And it's been a positive impact. My younger brothers, when they're, when it's closer to summertime or, we go on vacation and they start eating healthy, that, they'll eat more fruits and vegetables. They'll cut down on certain products. So I think it's been a positive impact on a lot of people in my life, and essentially that's another goal of the film, to inspire people to live healthier lives, to treat animals better, to treat the earth better. And at the end of the day, again, moderation is key. Nobody's perfect. I'm not trying to say eat vegetarian, eat vegan. I just want people to examine their choices that they make that can have a critical impact. I mean, we don't buy electronic goods every day. We don't buy clothing items every day. We eat food. Sometimes for athletes, 6 to 7 times a day. You know, you and I, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. So those have important economic consequences. They have important environmental consequences, and again, social and ethical consequences as well.
Now, you have a numerous amount of athletes throughout your documentary. I'm very curious, how did you manage to get a hold of all of them? I mean, your Rolodex wasn't that huge, right?
Right, exactly. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges in making the movie. So I'm not a filmmaker. I don't have a background in film. This is my first film. I probably bit off more than I could chew. The most expensive education I'll ever have in my life was making this movie. But it was a good one. There were a lot of great experiences that I learned. I made a lot of great friends, but I didn't really have to sell anybody a hamburger to get them in the film. Basically, I called up, whether it was their publicist or their agent, and I explained what I wanted to do, and I'm passionate about it. So I think my passion got me in the door at a lot of places, and then once I was able to get in touch, physically with the person, they wanted to be a part of it, and I'm grateful. Without them, I wouldn't have this movie. So it's perfect.
Was there anybody that was particularly difficult?
Well, yeah, there was a couple reasons why. No one in the film. There are some other athletes that I looked into simultaneously when I was looking into the athletes that are in the movie, but when you don't have a big studio name, when you're a small independent production, the brand, a lot of people's brand, they care about, they're keeping their brand intact and not putting themselves a part of anything that may get negative feedback or whatever, and not having a big studio, not having a big name, some people were apprehensive about that. I mean, that was a limitation that I couldn't overcome, but I'm hoping that if there's a filmmaker in the future that's in my position and somebody sees this movie and it impacts them and they're in a position of power, they may help a smaller filmmaker, that might be in the same situation that I'm in.
Who are you hoping to watch this documentary? Like mainly athletes or just basically any type of general audience?
Well, yeah, I think a younger generation. I think a younger generation of athletes, 18 to 35. I'm hoping that a lot of people that aren't vegetarian or vegan watch it. That's the general audience that I'm trying to attract. Because, ultimately, vegans and vegetarians, we're already here. I mean, it'll reaffirm the belief as to why eating this way is important. But at the end of the day, I wanted to try to reach an audience outside of that group.
Now, for yourself, are you still going to be running marathons and at least keep up with the athleticism?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to run as many marathons as it takes to qualify for Boston. So right now I'm in the age group that I have to run a 3:04 or better. So it's not going to be easy. It's definitely, that's a 7-minute mile, 6:51 mile, 6:51 to 7-minute mile for 26.2 miles. And I'm big. I'm 185 pounds. Little runners are, usually shorter and very thin. So that's my goal. I want to compete in as many marathons as it takes to get to Boston, because that's the holy grail, and I want to see what that race is all about.
I'm curious. You never had an urge, especially like when you go out with friends or family and you see them eating meat and all this kind of stuff. There's no trigger. So
it's it was interesting. Right when I started, for the first 2 years of eating this way and not being able to eat my grandma's food, being an Italian family, she cooked at our restaurant, and that smell. It takes you back years when I'm a young kid's comfort. And at first it was difficult. And she never understood that I didn't eat meat. She never got that, which is fine. She goes, hey, you want this? Grandma, it's been 6-7 years since I've had meat. What are we doing here? But that was the initial 2 years were tough. But now, I believe this, and I think that it's what's best for me, and I think it's what's best. The best way we can slow anthropogenic climate change is our food choices, and I just don't want to be a part of the mechanized food system. Now, as a new filmmaker yourself, how was that overall experience, and would you want to do this again? So as a new filmmaker, this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It took 4.5 years to complete. There were bumps and bruises along the way. There was a lot of blood, a lot of tears, to use sports metaphors. But I believe that film is extremely important. It's my favorite medium of art. I think you can take two people from different ideological spectrums and you show them a film and we can come to the same conclusion. and it can bring people together and provide knowledge they may not get. If you write a book, somebody may not have time to read a 350-page book, but they may have time to watch a 96-minute documentary film. That said, I think this is a niche that I like, and I want to try it again. I think it's expensive, it's tough. You have to have the right people that you trust around you, because there's a lot of pitfalls and there's a lot of things to get you confused and make you take the eye off the ball.
Okay, well, one last question just to wrap everything up.
Yeah.
If the audiences do actually watch your documentary film, what is the one primary lesson that you would love them to walk out with?
I think that the one primary lesson is that, I'll take it back to something I said, moderation is key. You can't be perfect, and ultimately, if you're trying to make a change, whether it's for your health, for animals, for the environment, do your best to consume less meat, processed meat, red meat, and from there, and ultimately, it'll reduce the harmful effects of those, issues to animals' health and the environment.
Terrific. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you.